Hey, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, the Everett R. Roy Bell Chamber. Tuesday, June 26th. I've been joined by the Honorable Councilmember Jose Huizar, and I don't believe we're expecting Councilmember Englander. Is that right? He's gone? Okay. So that being the case, I want to welcome you. As you can tell, the acoustics are not the best in this room. So if you have a conversation out of courtesy to your neighbor and for the ability to hear, please take your conversations outside. When you come to the microphone, keep your eye on the clock. For the most part, we'll be giving you 2 minutes. Give us your name and address. There might be an occasion where you find yourself agreeing with the previous speaker and everything that you wanted to say has already been stated. It's okay to say I agree with the previous speaker and give us something different or new. We don't have to hear the same thing over and over and over again. So that would be very much appreciated. Some of you have written eloquent letters, but you have 2 minutes. So you have to get to the point of the letter as soon as you can. I don't want to cut you off and say, well, I haven't told you what I wanted to say yet. Let's hear what you have to say. And you can submit your letter as part of the record as well. So I appreciate you being here in City Hall. I understand that we have our Los Angeles police officers here for item 4. Is that accurate? So that being the case, so that we can move our LAPD back into the field and not stuck in these chambers, we'd like to move on those cases as a priority. So let's start with item 4, Roberto.
Item 4, council members, is an appeal by Ankur Patel. He's appealing the action of the zoning administrator relative to the Danmar Motor Inn in CD8. The ZA found that the operator is in substantial but not in full compliance of prior conditions. And the zoning administrator is present.
Welcome, Ms. Green.
Good afternoon, committee members. Lourdes Green, Office of Zoning Administration. I'm not certain if LAPD did get here. I know some of them were going to be on vacation, but let me just briefly go into a review of this case. The committee has an appeal of a second review of compliance with conditions imposed on a motel, and this was originally under nuisance revocation procedures imposed in 2008. At that time, the Danmar Motor Inn was one of the 21 worst sites in South LA identified by the Community Coalition in 2006. Problems at the time of the original nuisance hearing included narcotics-related activity, which had led to city attorney complaints submitted to Superior Court. There were also problems with loitering, prostitution, and drug dealing, all of which placed a heavy burden on police resources. Under the original revocation hearing, the zoning administrator imposed 28 conditions. These included a requirement for a 24-hour patrol service rather than an on-site security guard. Also, there were operational restrictions related to registering guests, posting of certain signs and of motel rules, surveillance cameras, and maintenance. There was a subsequent review in 2010, at which time improvements were noted by the operators who had been working with the police and with the community. There was also testimony at that hearing that there were some conditions that had not been in full compliance. In 2010, there was a requirement for a 1-year review. That 1-year review is the one that I conducted in March of 2012. The property owner has appealed this my ZA action, which was to retain all the original conditions. The property owner, who is also the operator, wants to remove all the conditions that have been imposed, citing the improvements that have been made. We do acknowledge that there have been improvements made. However, there were some conditions that were non-compliant. There was an opportunity given to the property owner to provide some evidence of some of these conditions after the hearing, but none were supplied. There is also a condition regarding patrol security service, which was to be 24 hours a day, including daytime visits. At my hearing, the security guard testified that he only patrolled the site twice in the evening, and sometimes a third time on the weekend when the bars closed. Just as a reference, in August 2011, 2 police officers in an undercover operation posed as a prostitute and a client, presenting themselves as such to the clerk, who rented them a room. The clerk was cited and arrested. Of relevance also in this case is that the operator is also the owner of the Pine Tree Motel, which is next door, which your committee and city council considered as a revocation in this year, in April of 2012, and imposed corrective conditions on that. So, I think the assumption would be that if this was operated in such a fine condition, those conditions should not have been spilled over into the other motel that's also owned by the same operator. Police also believes that the record should really be exemplary before any consideration to lift any conditions is undertaken. Likewise, we think that the retention of conditions does in many ways provide a closer oversight of the facilities. So under my review, I required a subsequent 1-year review, which was recommended by police, at which time we feel we can evaluate whether the conditions should be removed or retained. So we recommend that you retain the conditions as proposed, the original ones. I'm glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Well, thank you, Ms. Green. That was very thorough. Any questions, Councilman? Well, thank you for that report. If we could have, let's have the property representative come up, then we'll ask the police officer. We have Richard Gibson.
That's me. Hi, I'm Richard Gibson. I'm the attorney for the owner.
Can you move the microphone closer to you?
Excuse me.
There
Is
you
it
go.
better? Initially, I'd like to note my client entirely shares the police's concerns. We want this area to be crime-free. It's frankly, it's better for business, as I think is obvious to all of us. What the record now shows is we have 2 consecutive reviews showing substantial compliance with the conditions imposed. We do not have criminal activity in the motel. We had a reference to an arrest of a motel clerk. I want to note the police did not go through with that. That clerk was not convicted. The matter was not prosecuted. As just a legal matter, you couldn't bring that up in court. The police had arrested somebody and then hadn't prosecuted them. What we do have is crime in the area. We all know about that. And there's something I think there's a bit of a disconnection between the city and the business owners on this point, which is I want you to understand why I'm here. We are not seeking the conditions to be removed so that we'll stop doing these things. My client wants to continue doing these things. We understand the need to do it. What my client really wants is to have the conditions not recorded against the property, because when you record conditions against the property, you hurt the property value. You make it so you can't get a loan against the business. You have difficulty selling it. It's a direct impairment of our property value. I mean, we don't. So I want to be very clear. We don't want to operate a bad place. We want to run a clean business. We want to cooperate with the police. What we're asking you to do is just not to hurt the property value of our business.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, we have with us several officers. I believe we have Sergeant Brent McGuire, Officer Felix, and Officer Livingston. If you'd like to come out to the microphone.
Hello. Hi, I'm Sergeant Brent McGuire. I'm LAPD, Southwest Vice.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The reason why we're here is, the main reason we're here is because of the community concerns surrounding this motel. As the hearing officer alluded to, I was here a couple of months ago for the Pine Tree Motel, which is owned by the same owner, and you guys upheld or you denied the appeal on those restrictions for a lot of the same reasons that I'm about to discuss right now. The main issue for us right now is the prostitution in the area. I work the Southwest Vice Unit. I can let you know our arrests in the area for prostitution are up 164% this year compared to last year. So in a sense, that means our arrests in that area are more than doubled. We're struggling to get a grasp on this issue. One of our main issues is the row of lower rent motels in the area which cater to this type of business, one of which we believe to be the Danmar Motel. In response to that, we even have a Western Corridor project with the city attorney where we have all of the people arrested for prostitution. As part of their probation, they're given a stay-away order to stay away from the area. So we've taken a lot of drastic measures in order to get a handle on this problem, but we still continue to have issues with it. I don't want to take up any more of your time, so I'll have Officer Felix step up, and she can tell you some more of the specific issues that relate directly to that motel, but I just wanted to give you an outlook as far as why we're here and what our issues are concerning this area.
Well, before you leave, and perhaps each officer can answer this question, we just have representation from the owner saying that there are no problems in the hotel itself, but it's a reflection of what's happening in the neighborhood. Yet, there was an arrest, I understand, if I heard correctly.
Yes.
Yet he says they were not convicted. Can you speak to that in terms of the conditions being laid out and how you respond to that assertion that it's not coming from the hotel?
Yes, we always try to make sure to be fair to the local motels, that it is a direct correlation to that motel. So the arrest that they're alluding to was I sent an undercover female officer posing as a prostitute. She's dressed in scantily, clothes. She looks like a prostitute. We sent her up there with a male officer. They make it very obvious when they go up to the motel, hey, I'd like to rent a room. Are you going to take my ID? I don't want my wife to know I'm here with a prostitute. Do you guys sell any condoms? I mean, they make it blatant that that's what they're there for, is to rent a room for prostitution. In this particular instance, the clerk did rent them the room, which was very disturbing to us. I can tell you that is exactly as it happened in the arrest report. It was documented. We didn't want to necessarily book this hotel clerk into jail, so we wrote her a release from custody. And speaking to the city attorney's office, unfortunately, due to their furloughs, sometimes the release from custody arrests get a lower priority than others. So it's my belief that it wasn't filed because of that reason, not necessarily because, it was an unjust arrest. Because I can tell you I supervised that arrest, and that's exactly what occurred.
And thank you for that, because that sheds light on what is being asserted versus what was factual. So thank you, sir.
Okay.
I'd like to call the other officers.
Hi, I'm Officer Felix. I'm also with Southwest Vice Unit. Again, like my supervisor was saying, we had that arrest in August 2011. Currently, we're still, even though we have an improvement with prostitution in that area, we do have a lot of loitering and prostitution arrests in front of the motel, surrounding areas. With these conditions, they would help to eliminate some of those problems and have those prostitution activities in the area minimized. It's a continuing nuisance and issue to the community, and with these conditions, like I said before, they would eliminate a lot of the problems in that area, and that's about it.
Well, thank you for your hard work. Appreciate you being here. All right.
Hi, I'm Officer Levinson. I work Detective Sport Vice Division for LAPD. In the past, I was assigned to Southwest for approximately 8 years, so I'm pretty familiar with the Danmar Motel. Since the condition permit's been placed on the motel, I have seen some of the crime has increased a little bit, but since of 2007, since the property received these conditions, from 2010, there's been still 31 calls to service and approximately 13 arrests. So just in taking consideration of the community, which itself, since it's still plagued by criminal activity in the years, I still think the conditions should stay in place.
Thank you, officer. Thank you for your work and your statement. I don't see any other cards on this item. I believe the council office is supporting the ZA's action and the denial of the appeal. And I'm not sure if they set that for the record through a letter. Did we get a letter from the council office?
Yes, you did.
Okay, great. Well, based on the record, based on the zoning administrator's testimony, and given what the officers have shared with us, And it's clear to me that Councilmember Parks has been very much involved in this matter through the planning deputy, Previ Dashi. I would conclude that we should support the ZA's action and deny the appeal. We have a second on that? So that'll be the action of this committee. Before we go any further, I just want to make sure that item number 6 will be continued in plum to July 31st. That's 2012. In plum, July 31st. That's item number 6. So if anybody's here for item number 6, that will be continued to July 31st. We also have here the Director of the Planning Department, Michael Legrand. If you'd like to just share your report with us, sir, at this time.
Yes, Mike Legrand, Director of Planning. A few things to report. Thank you to the two council members here today. We had unanimous approval of the Hollywood Community Plan, which is one of the first of 6 community plans we have moving forward through the city to provide a comprehensive visioning plan for various communities in Los Angeles. This Hollywood Community Plan concentrates any potential for development and new housing starts along the 5 transit nodes, as well as putting preservation plans in place for the historic properties and allowing for protection of our hillside areas and our ecological sensitive areas. So we're very excited to see unanimous approval by the City Council on that plan. And today it was signed by the Mayor, and so we're happy to see it move forward. I'd like to thank both Councilmember Weezar and Councilmember Reyes for your leadership on that plan, not only through the Plum Committee, but through the entire City Council process. In addition, we had a comprehensive zoning code rewrite proposal approved by the City Council last Tuesday. That is we have a 1946 zoning code in Los Angeles. Many people don't know. When we talk to other cities, we're one of the oldest cities with the oldest zoning codes that we currently have compared to other large cities of our size, and we feel it's an opportune time to update that code to be primed for the recovery of the economy and to be able to be in a position where anyone doing a kitchen addition or a small addition to their home has current regulations on the book that weren't developed when Los Angeles in 1946 was a much different place than we are today. We didn't have the transit infrastructure we have today, or the traffic issues and congestion we have. So a new zoning code is definitely a tool. We look forward to working with the City Council and all the residents of Los Angeles and the business community over the next 5 years. So we're excited about those 2 work programs. We will be giving you quarterly updates on the zoning code as it goes forward starting in July. We'll be giving quarterly updates to the Plum Committee on the progress of that.
Well, thank you, Mr. LeGrand. When the Mayor did do the sign-off, we are still in the City Council meeting. We couldn't join him, but I want to thank him for support as well, and thank your team for getting us to this threshold. And I know there's a series of other community plans we are focused on, and hopefully we're setting a good pace and a trend for our department. Thank you, sir. Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. And I understand in Budget and Finance this week as well, they approved some funding for some of the community plans to move forward, and they forwarded that item to Plum. So I look forward to hearing that item in Plum, Mr. Chair, so that we could discuss having our the rest of our community plans that are backlogged up to date.
Excellent, and thank you for that.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's jump back to item number 1, and Roberto, want to read that into the record?
Sure. Item 1, council members, is a Board of Building and Safety Commissioners action relative to an unapproved conversion of an attached garage. And associated with this action is a Charter Section 245 motion by Councilmember Rosenthal and yourself to assert jurisdiction over the Board of Building and Safety's action.
Okay. So, let's see, can we have, let's go to the public comment cards. We have Steve Kaplan and then Jim McQuestion.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Steve Kaplan with the law firm of Luna and Glushon, and I'm here today to ask that you recommend to the council to veto the action of the Board of Commissioners of the Building Safety Department I made a presentation in front of the board. They denied the appeal in front of them. We believe there are facts that would warrant further consideration of this matter. The motion that was made at council on 245 suggests that the matter be referred back to the board to find an equitable solution. I put forward that equitable solution in front of the board, but they denied it. Councilman Rosendahl has come to attempt to further aid his constituent, and I believe that there can be something worked out if this Plum Committee recommends to the council to veto the action of the board and to work with the appellant in the underlying matter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? No. Mr. McQuestion? Jim McQuestion? Good afternoon, sir.
Jim McQuestion. I gave you my statement. I do want to point out that the original statement was an error because one of the section numbers, the computer said 4 instead of 5. It's the government code section, but I believe the clerk rectified that for the record. We do have a problem when there's a use variance, and the city has steadfastly forgotten that there is a state code that says you're not supposed to have use variances. The Supreme Court has said so. And we can get around that, but the easy way to get around it is to rezone. And especially in RE15, we're looking for increasing density. In RE15, I really cannot countenance in the city of Los Angeles anymore. So that's something that you do want to look at as an alternative to actually ignoring what the city has put down in the code, because we don't want the city to be scofflaws.
Thank you, Mr. McQuestion. Seeing no other cards, I understand our actions are either to veto or not to veto. My understanding that the council office has been very much involved in the conditions of this case. And I would submit to you, Councilman, that we would veto the June 12, 2012 Board of Building and Safety Commissioners' action to deny the request by the property owner at 12970 San Vicente Boulevard, but also recommend that the Department of Building and Safety to review in consultation with the property owner at 12970 San Vicente Boulevard, the land use specialist, and the office of the Council District 11, the request by the property owner to see if there are any other solutions to their situation. And if we can do that, that would hopefully we'll send it back with that veto.
I'll second that.
Okay. So with action of this committee on item number 1. Next item, Roberto.
Next item, council members, is a CAO report relative to a contract with Rincon Consultants to provide services to the Plan Department for EIR reports and new community plan program updates.
Okay, do we have a report from the department on this? A summary?
The department recommends approval, council member.
Okay.
I think this can go on consent. There's no impact on the general fund.
So we can approve the CAO recommendation to authorize the planning department to negotiate and execute the second amendment to contract number C-108891 with Rincon Consultants, Inc. to extend the term of the contract for 24 months for consulting services related to environmental impact reports, for selected new community plan program updates and specific plans subject to review and approval of the city attorney as to form, compliance with the city's contract requirements and on available funding. Okay, have a second on that?
Yes, I do have a question on this though first.
Please.
So this is to support the EIR services for the new community plan program. Given that we are getting funding from that action yesterday in Budget and Finance, how do the two interrelate?
Mike LeGrand, for the record, Director of Planning. This is basically an extension of the contract we use to get assistance with the environmental analysis we do for the community plan program. So it's for some of the existing work we have on our existing community plans, as well as the ones we're taking forward currently. So this wouldn't relate to staff costs, but consultant costs to assist us in preparing those documents that are required for your approval.
So if we don't get the funding for whatever reason, to continue with those 6 other community plans, would we need this contract?
Not the entirety of it, no.
Not the entirety of it.
Correct.
So we should probably take them together.
The only issue is
We know why, if we are giving a contract out to consultants to do the EIR planning for community plans, but we don't know yet what that full program is for the community plans, why wouldn't we just do it together so that we know what the full program is for community plans?
This is actually for the existing community plans that are ready. We have staffing working on that are coming through the process. For example, San Pedro's in the draft stage of the EIR. That plan will be before the Planning Commission at the end of the summer. 5 more community plans are coming forward that all are in various stages of environmental work. So the staffing has already been programmed for these plans. The plans that will follow this up, such as Boyle Heights, that contract money is not before you today.
I believe we have the CAO as well. Might shed some light.
Yes. Good afternoon, council members. Madeline Rackley with the CAO. Part of these 2 items, item 2 and 3, are to pay for contractual work that has already been done. Okay. So the funding already exists, and these contracts are retroactive about a year, and they will they enable the department to actually pay their bills.
Gotcha.
So, and no new funding is requested. So
this is for work already done?
Yes, partially.
Okay.
Yep.
So for the new 6 community plans that we hope to help fund through the process, for the funding that was approved in Budget and Finance, do we have funding to do the EIRs for them?
I'm so sorry, I can't hear you.
Do we have funding? Yesterday in Budget and Finance, there was some funding that was identified as possible monies to pay for 6 community plans that are in the pipeline.
I believe, council member, the action actually, sorry to interrupt you, was specific to the Boyle Heights community plan, and 2 position authorities that were requested. I think there were 2 planning associates.
So is it specific to Boyle Heights?
Yes, sir.
Is that accurate? Is that your understanding?
Yes, it was specific to Boyle Heights, but to also assist with the other plans as they come along and Boyle Heights is completed. But the money for the Boyle Heights community plans, we had started that in the past. There's approximately $230,000 to $240,000 that the CAO has worked with us to maintain to do the contract work, such as the EIR for the Boyle Heights community plans. So that money is already programmed. So the money that was at Budget and Finance yesterday was to fund the staff to assist with the Boyle Heights community plan.
Okay. So items 2 and 3 in today's agenda to support EIRs, there'll be sufficient funding to support the community plans, because those are 2 different things, correct?
Correct.
So if we approve these items today, there'll be sufficient funding to do the EIR analysis for the Boyle Heights community plan.
Yes, sir.
There will? Okay.
So are we, okay.
So we approved 2.
Right.
And then the next item is, again, a CAO, which is item 3, is a CAO report. It's another contract with Fair and Piers, and this is for transportation improvement mitigation projects.
Again, work that's already been completed but allows them to pay their bills.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So you can approve the CAO report to extend the contract for 24 months.
Right. And just for the record, what are the 6 community plans that were referred to? Do you happen to know at this time, Roberto?
Not at the top of my head, but perhaps Mr. LeGrand knows that.
Councilman Huizar alluded to 6 community plans. Can you, just for the record, and sake of clarity, name those community plans?
That sounds like a quiz, council member.
Hey, gotta keep on your toes.
San Pedro, Granada Hills, Silmar, West Adams, South Los Angeles, and Southeast Los Angeles.
All right, he wins the big lottery. All right, good job, man. Earned your money today. Okay, so item 3, we can also approve CAO recommendation to authorize the planning department and see no cards. To negotiate and execute supplemental agreement. Number 2, to contract C-100313 with Fair and Peers to extend the terms of the contract for 24 months for the continued provision of consulting services related to transportation improvement and mitigation projects for the new community plan program updates, subject to the review and approval of the city attorney as to form compliance with the city's contract requirements and available funding. And I have a second on that. So that moves item 3 as well. Okay, Roberto, where does that take us?
Be the last item, council members.
We have the one that has all these people here?
Sure. This is an appeal by, I believe it's 3 individuals. It's Rabbi Aaron Aben from the Chabad of North Hollywood. He has his attorney, Mr. Resnick, representing him. There's an appeal by Mitchell Remen and also by Mr. Jeff Gantman. And it has to do with a project in CD5 as it relates to a synagogue.
Okay. Let's see here. Ms. Green?
Good afternoon, committee members. Lourdes Green, Office of Zoning Administration. So before you is the consideration of 3 appeals of the ZA action, which relating to a request of a conditional use for a religious facility, 2 variances for height and parking, and 2 adjustment for yard setbacks. The committee is acting as the first-level appellate board. I'd just like to provide you a brief chronology of the actions and then highlight the components of the case, of the ZA case. The ZA hearing on this case was conducted in early 2008. In November 2008, the ZA decision was issued, which consisted of the approval of the project and a project that was smaller than the one that was proposed by the applicant. And I'll get into a little bit of the components of that after I go through some of the timelines. That ZA action was appealed to the South Valley Area Planning Commission by the applicant who wanted a larger project and by 2 neighbors who wanted no project or a significantly smaller project. The APC considered the matter in February of 2009. I tried to find some common ground for an acceptable building size for both sides, but could not. The APC then denied the project, citing size, parking, and enforceability as some of the main concerns. The APC action was not further appealable. On June 16, 2009, the City Council asserted jurisdiction over the matter pursuant to Section 245 of the City Charter, and on June 19 of 2009, the City Council approved a project that modified the CA action by approving a structure with a larger square footage and more generous yard setbacks than the ZA action. A lawsuit was filed by a neighborhood association, which eventually resulted in the Court of Appeals requiring that the June 19, 2009 City Council action granting the entitlements and findings be set aside. On May 29 of this year, the City Council adopted a motion to refer the matter to Plum to reconsider it as recommended by the City Attorney in response to the writ issued by the Court. And so this hearing is in response to that City Council action. So let me just briefly go through what the project was that was in front of me in 2008. It was a conditional use for a 16,100 square foot building with approximately 3,650 square feet of assembly space. And that assembly space consisted of the combination synagogue, sanctuary, and multipurpose room. There was a variance request for a 37-foot height building, for no wall enclosure for the parking area, and for 5 on-site parking spaces in lieu of 104 parking spaces. That number of the required parking is triggered by the proposed assembly space, meaning the multipurpose room and the sanctuary. There were also requests for adjustments from reduced front and side yards, and a ZA interpretation for property vacated along a portion of Chandler Boulevard. The CA action that you're considering, which was my action, was a dismissal of the ZA interpretation as that zoning matter had been clarified, a denial of the height variance, an approval of a reduced building of 10,300 square feet with a requirement that 40% of it be in the basement level, which resulted in 6,800 square feet above ground. There was a reduction in my action of the assembly space to 2,400 square feet, which resulted in a parking requirement of 68 parking spaces. There was approval of the no parking wall and of the 5 on-site parking spaces with required off-site parking for specific activities. There was a denial of the requested yard setback reductions along Ethel Avenue and Chandler Boulevard, and a requirement that the setbacks be deeper than requested by the applicant. And I also imposed a number of operational conditions as well as a subsequent review of compliance, review of condition compliance once the building had been issued a certificate of occupancy. I'd like to just sort of briefly, for comparison, give you what the City Council action did in 2009. They agreed with the ZA interpretation dismissal. The council also denied the height variance. The council approved a 12,000 square foot building with a requirement that 20% of it be in a basement, which allowed 9,600 square feet above ground. So this represented about 2,800 square feet more than what the ZA action had approved. This council action approved assembly space of 3,370 square feet, which then triggered a parking requirement of 97 spaces as compared to the 2,400 square feet in the ZA action and 68 parking spaces. There was a new condition imposed establishing a 200-person maximum occupancy in the assembly area. There was the approval of no parking wall and the 5 on-site parking spaces. There was an approval of setbacks that were not as steep or uniform as those approved in the ZA action. There was a retention of mostly all of the operational conditions found in the ZA action with some minor tweaks. There was also a new condition clarifying that religious instruction is permitted but that the day school is not permitted. So this is sort of a brief summary of the action. The range of options in front of the committee are that, you can deny the entire project, you can approve the ZA project, you can approve something that's similar to what the City Council approved, or you can approve anything in between. If you do consider an approval, you can look at conditions. You can look at the conditions that were imposed by the ZA or those by City Council, or you can actually add new ones, modify, or delete conditions. And so that's pretty much the scope, and I'm glad to answer any questions if you have them now or later.
Okay. We do have 3 different appellants, and 2, I believe, are representing the applicant, and 1 is the neighbor, if I'm correct?
One appellant is the applicant, and 2 represent neighbors.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Thank you for that summary. Any questions for Ms. Green? Okay. Now, folks, we have quite a few cards on this case. Quite a few cards. But I want to make sure I give the appellants ample time to state their case. And given their assertions, we'll probably do 20 minutes on each side. And we'll try to keep it to a minute to a person. But for the appellants, I want to give them enough time to, again, make their statements. So that being said, I believe we have Rabbi Aaron Abend as one of the appellants. I'd like to come on forward, please. Yes. On this one, on the appellants, let's give them, let's just start with the 3 minutes, and then if we have to go farther, we will, but I want to keep it as concise as possible. You don't look like Rabbi.
Chairman Reyes, Ben Resnick, representing Chabad. I'd like to make the presentation on the appellant's behalf, but Rabbi Abend just is the spiritual leader, and he would just be a normal speaker limited to whatever time anyone else is.
So you want to be the person who supports and makes the case for the appeal?
Yes, for the project approval.
And you will be concise, correct?
I already lost.
No, let's go. Let's go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes, Vice Chair Huizar. My name is Ben Resnick, representing Chabad. How did we get here, and what do we have? You had a very good summary by the zoning administrator. The one thing I will say, though, that after the City Council approved the project some 2 years ago, permits were issued, validly issued, construction validly commenced, and the project is well underway and has been underway. Some neighbors filed lawsuits, and the lawsuits took a couple of years to resolve, and a court of appeal issued a decision which I'm going to tell you my take on it, but I think is consistent. And basically, the court never said this project can never be approved, cannot be approved, is wrong. All the court said is that if the city council is going to change anything the zoning administrator ruled on, it has to explain why the zoning administrator erred. It has to make a specific finding as to where the council disagrees. That was the extent of that decision. And based on that, they remanded the case back to the city council. So it's a fix-it case. It's coming back to you as in terms of the findings need to be fixed. I want to say that we did submit extensive findings for the council to support the project, including specifically addressing the Court of Appeals concerns and comments. Having said that, I think it's important to also note that this is a very unique piece of property. It's triangular, which means in the front you can build, but as you get to the back, if you see my hands, it's not buildable back there. It's very narrow. So while it may have 9,600 square feet, it's very narrow. I also think there's a misconception in the community about what's actually being built. Because what the City Council approved 2 years ago, which is the 12,000 square foot building, of which only 20% has to be underground, is not actually the building that is being built. It's 12,000, but it's much larger underground. The building underground is almost 6,000 square feet, and there's only one floor rather than 2 floors. So while we have a 28-foot height building, which is pursuant to the zoning code, no variances, it's a high ceiling, because it's a sanctuary. And so what we have is 6,000 square feet on the ground, 6,000 square feet below, which is more than 40% below, more than what Ms. Green had requested, actually. I'm not sure a lot of people even understand that or know that. We are right adjoining the orange bus line. So as you look out the window, basically you see the big 12-foot wall of the orange bus line right there. And in fact, Chabad has been offered to lease the land from the MTA that's sitting there otherwise idly, which it wants to do and will be able to utilize to be able to provide perhaps either more parking or to be able to use it for just outdoor activity. What's before you today are minor adjustments that the council made. The zoning administrator approved 10,300. We're asking for only 1,700 square feet more. The zoning administrator approved an assembly area of about 2,400 square feet. We're asking for 3,300 square feet. Why? Because what we agreed to accept, what the council did, is capped the number of people who can be there at any one point in time to 200. And so what you have is a height that is allowed for anyone in the neighborhood, 28 feet. You have a very unique lot that's very triangular, very difficult. We are on Chandler Boulevard that's over 150 feet wide, big median divider, 4-lane highway effectively, and we have all of that sidewalk along there that no one else uses. And here is a fact no one realizes. There's not a single piece of private property, not one, that abuts this Chabad house. We have the MTA on the north and on the east. We have Chandler Boulevard on the south. We have Ethel Avenue on the west. We are completely an island. And it's been there for over 30 years in a small, cramped facility, and finally the community put up enough money to be able to try to build a structure that will fit and be able to accommodate them, and you will hear more from the community on that. Thank you for allowing me to exceed my time.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Resnick, you spoke.
Since many people came here and we've asked them not to speak in order to respect the committee's time, may I just ask for a show of hands of all those who are here in support?
Yes. Or they could stand.
May I just have a show of hands, just a show of hands, because some of you are in the back, I know, and some of you are on the other side. Thank you for coming, and thank you for agreeing not to speak for many of you.
Thank you very much. That's very much appreciated. Yes.
Some of those cards are in here, but they're
Okay.
mixed in, so.
Okay, no problem. All right. We also have on record as an appellant, Mitchell L. Rahman. Are you here? You pass? Okay. I believe we have Jeff Gunsman, appellant. We can also start with 3 minutes, and then if we need to go farther, we will as well, to be fair.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. ladies and gentlemen. I also just want to point out that our attorney, Mark Chapeau, is here and will also be speaking. I think he has a speaker card and would like to speak as well.
Okay, so will he be taking on the brunt of the presentation, or will you?
Well, I think if you'd like to, I'd like to speak, but if you want to hear from him first following Mr. Resnick, I'd like to speak as well to the issues.
Okay.
So I don't want to take away from his time, though.
No, I want to make sure the appellants feel that they got a fair time in presenting their case, so go ahead.
And I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Well, it's interesting that we're here, and I don't know why we're here, because we filed a lawsuit and won, and I guess that this is just the way of the world. So I appreciate the value of the law and following it to the letter. But some of the things that Mr. Resnick left out were the writ language that specifically cites, yes, the entitlements were to be vacated, but the laws that were ignored, first and foremost by the City Council, I believe you two were there. You didn't do this, but one of those laws is 12.27K, which requires that any new evidence that wasn't before Mrs. Green at the time it was initially looked at, it has to go back to her. And so the question I think that people are scratching their heads is, how did this become a political issue? The neighbors are not against Chabad. They're not against them having a structure. This is not an island in the stream. This is a residential neighborhood. And if I may, how many people live in this neighborhood that are here today? Okay. This is our community too. We share it with Chabad. What's interesting about the appeal notice that we got, which takes us back before the South Valley Area Planning Commission, is that Rabbi Aaron Aben and myself and Mitch have sat down, we broke bread, we talked about the differences of our opinion. This is not about being anti-Chabad. What this is about is a neighborhood having a massive now multi-purpose center that has tied to it conditions that are not enforceable. Mr. Resnick is fond of saying that he has a lease with Valley College. Well, I called the Valley College yesterday because I knew I was going to be here and I just wanted to confirm. This lease, in essence, is not a lease, it's an agreement. And it's for 14 events a year. And they're not guaranteed parking at all. At all. They make 5 months in advance and all of a sudden the Valley College gets the spaces and they'll call Rabbi and they'll say, sorry, there are no spaces. So our contention has been that this is not the right forum for this. There are so many inconsistencies and ambiguities that still exist with this project that somebody can stand here in front of you and read you half of what the writ said. Yeah, you vacate the entitlements, but now you have 3 laws that weren't followed. And what impression are you left with? So I think there are a lot of issues here on the table. Chabad continues to build this project. Their entitlements are stripped. And our concern basically is just the quality of life in that neighborhood. Yes, people do walk, but they also drive. And to stand and say they don't, they do. February 28th. By the way, they've had that permit for a year. They haven't used it once. February 28th, there were over 100 cars up and down the streets of Chandler. I have pictures. You have the information that we sent you today. There are real issues here, and they're not about Chabad. It's about a building its size. We believe that the size is smaller. It'll lessen the impact on the neighborhood. You can still put people in there that they need. It's just the size. And by the way, just let me finish. He keeps saying it could be 28 feet tall. It's discretionary. It could also be 15 feet tall, and you all know that. Somebody made that decision. There's no law that says, oh, the synagogue has to be 28 feet tall. That's our issue. It isn't with the rabbi or the congregants. It's our neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, you did say your attorney was going to make the case?
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Chapeau. I'm one of the attorneys representing the residents in the area who want to see the size of this project limited so that it is more in keeping with the character of this residential neighborhood. I argued the appeal of this matter, which led to the California Court of Appeal decision that overturned the decision of the City Council and resulted in the issuance of a writ of mandate sending it back to the City Council. We believe that the City Council, and with all due respect, not this committee, should be considering this matter. But since it's here, I do want to address the committee and indicate what our position is. In order to comply with the writ of mandate that has been issued, and I strongly urge the committee members to review the writ and the appellate decision very closely, in order to comply with that, this project must go back to the zoning administrator. That is certainly what was contemplated by the Superior Court, which specifically said contrary to Mr. Resnick's assertion, this is not simply a case of a do-over. The Superior Court said, petitioners, the homeowners that I represent, do not just get a do-over by the City Council that identifies or corrects a minor issue. They get a decision that complies with Topanga, and they get to have the zoning administrator consider any evidence presented in the first instance. This must go back to the zoning administrator. Now, Chabad's attorney has submitted a lengthy list of findings to this committee, telling you what they say needs to be done to try and get around the decision by the Court of Appeal and the Superior Court. I think it's at best disingenuous for Chabad to propose to do or purport to do your job. I don't think the court will consider that those findings by Chabad, if adopted by you, are a proper substitute for the City Council and the zoning administrator undertaking the scrutiny and serious consideration of these issues that is necessary and that's required by the writ. In addition, the proposed findings do not comport with the writ or the mandate from the Court of Appeal. The proposed findings basically simply rubber stamp the proposal that Councilman Weiss submitted. That's the proposal that the City Council adopted, although it's interesting to hear that apparently the building is not even being built according to that proposal. In any event, the Court of Appeal has expressly stated that Councilman Weiss's proposal cannot be considered by the City Council. If I may, just very briefly.
If we can conclude, yes.
The Court of Appeal has specifically said the proposal Councilman Weiss made at the City Council meeting differed in material respects from the proposal approved by the zoning administrator. The City Council's decision was therefore not based on the record. So the City Council, the Court of Appeal has precluded approval of of Councilman Weiss's proposal. And if you adopt those findings, you also will be undermining the zoning administrator. She is there for a reason to thoroughly vet this project. She did that in a 45-page decision, which is backed up by information provided by residents and her own investigation, and she came up with serious limitations on this project. In order to get around that, contrary to her assertion and Mr. Resnick's assertion, you cannot simply do what you want and approve different sizes. You must find that her decision was in error based on specific findings and evidence, or she abused her discretion, again, based on specific findings and evidence. I don't think that you can do that, but at the very least, this needs to go back to her to consider whatever new project may be out there, which is something that apparently was not even in front of the zoning administrator, much less the City Council.
Thank you very much. For the sake of fairness, we did allow for the appellant and the attorney to speak. On the previous case, which is let the attorney and Mr. Resnick speak. So I'd like to invite Rabbi Aaron Ben to come forward if you'd like to speak first. It's up to him. He doesn't have to. We also have Alex DeGood, if he would choose to speak. Is Alex DeGood here? We're about to go into public comment now. Let's do 1 minute.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Rabbi Aaron Abend. I am the Rabbi Spiritual Leader at Chabad North Hollywood. Just a few points. Number one, historically speaking, community members, people who live in the neighborhood, are the ones that actually purchased the site back in 1980, and we've been operating there for 31 years. Our growth, and in general, it has been a growth in the greater community. We're not the only synagogue on Chandler Boulevard. There are others, and we serve part of that community. Other synagogues serve other parts of the community. But this here is clearly within the atmosphere of what that neighborhood represents. It's true that our location is unique. We align, as Mr. Resnick said, we have the Orange Line, we have Ethel Avenue, we have Chandler Boulevard in this triangular-shaped piece of land. with Valley College about 1,000 feet away. May I, 30 seconds more?
Yes, please.
Okay. We are building a beautiful building, okay? Yes, it's 1 story high, but we have a high ceiling because it's a sanctuary. And this is, again, I believe a great improvement to the neighborhood, certainly compared to the shack that existed there beforehand, and we hope you support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex DeGood. Alex DeGood, are you here? Okay, you'll pass. Okay, we do have 2 stacks of cards. My understanding is that if you stood up in support of the application, that would essentially denote your support. So do I have to go through all the cards? That's my question to you. By standing up, did you... Let's do this. Right. Okay. Okay, so those who feel compelled to speak, if you can come to the microphone, and we'll give you 1 minute and give us your name. That way I don't have to go through all the cards, because there are quite a few cards. It's like to come on up to the microphone, you got 1 minute, give us your name and address, if you feel compelled to speak. This is to support the church, or the synagogue.
Are you ready? Hi, my name is Julia Granovitz. I live in 12765 Tiara Street, North Hollywood. I wanted to talk about one effect of not having enough room in the synagogue. When we had the old building, each Saturday I would walk to synagogue with my teenage daughter. There was never enough seats when we would get to the synagogue. And there was a tradition for the younger people to give up their seats for older people. So the teens and young adults would end up standing in the back. After a while, my daughter didn't even want to go to synagogue because she would either have to stand the whole time, or sometimes there wasn't even standing room, that she would have to go outside. Now, I believe that families should be able to sit together to pray, so we need a larger building.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name's Thomas Beltran. I live at 12746 McCormick Street in Valley Village, a few blocks away from the site. There's already a building there. And I'm here as a member of the Jewish community, and I'm also here as an attorney. And first, I'd like to speak as a member of the community. And what we're looking for is a building that's beautiful, that's uplifting, that supports the work that is going on there. And the building that's proposed is such a building. As an attorney, I'd like to say, having read the decisions and the zoning administrator's ruling, that I take issue with some of the comments by the opposition. And mainly it's that this is not a matter of no project versus some sort of a project. The floor now is the zoning administrator's ruling. That's the floor. The Court of Appeal sent this back to this body saying that it did not connect the dots. It didn't do the math, and it didn't connect the rulings.
Thank you, sir.
That's the bottom line.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
My name's Daniela Linden, 5441 Wurtzer Avenue, really close proximity to Chabad. We've been living there for about 15 years now. In all our associations and all our involvement with Chabad, I can't remember ever having driven. We've always walked for every event, and we're just very excited to see a beautiful project and an outcome, and we hope you support it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Beth Appel. I live across the street, which is at 13026 Chandler Boulevard. I have 5 kids. We are Orthodox Jews, and all Orthodox Jews walk on the Sabbath, and parking is never an issue. Everybody just really enjoys going to Chabad. There's so much good prayers and good moral, we really learn how to be a really good person, and they do so many wonderful things. I really am very glad that Chabad is there, and I'm really looking forward to their building.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
My name is Goldie Janol, and I've lived in the area for the past 40 years in Sherman Oaks. I live within about half a mile from Chabad, and I walk there every Saturday and on the holidays. And for the expansion of Chabad. Finally, we're going to have a beautiful building to accommodate everybody on Chandler Boulevard with nice sidewalks for the pedestrians that Chandler doesn't have. I have lived there for this area for the past 42 years. Our community has been growing, and we need the new Chabad building. It's a must. We have the Red Line, the busway that has improved our neighborhood, and Chabad will be an asset to our area. Our homes will go up in value with the new building. Please let us go ahead with the building of Chabad and the expansion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
My name is Elke Abend, and we live at 5246 Ethel Avenue. We bought this home, which is 600 feet from Chabad of North Hollywood. Specifically this close proximity because we have 5 small children, and from when they're 18 months, they are able to walk to the synagogue, and they greatly enjoy being able to walk to and from synagogue every week. And this congregation, it means a lot to my family, and we are very excited for its completion, and we thank you for your time and assistance with this matter.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is David Harrison. As well, my wife and I have 5 children. I guess it's a little theme going. But we also live directly across the street from the project, just right across Chandler. We moved there last year for one of the reasons in the anticipation of the synagogue. It brings a big joy to our family. We're excited about the project. It will increase the property value to the neighborhood, and we hope that the committee will move this along as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I can only remember, it wasn't that long ago.
Can I have your name?
Oh, Baruch Erblich.
Okay.
I live about 400 feet away from Chabad. I can remember it was not that long ago when we had people opposing the busway. I must tell you that all it did was improve the neighborhood because it looks nice, it's put together well, and just like Mrs. Janol mentioned before. And now we are looking at a beautiful synagogue that is to be built. It helps us all. We do not drive on Shabbos. We walk. And one time I heard, there's sometime in February 20-something, that there were a lot of cars there. You're going to judge it by one day that they might have seen it. I don't understand why. But we are looking forward to see a beautiful building. It'll help the neighborhood, and please approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Silver. I live in the neighborhood of Chabad. Although I do not worship at Chabad, I support their efforts to make their building more beautiful, and I think it'll help the diversity and the warmth of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Eric Muscatel, 5351 Mary Ellen. Basically, we can see the Chabad from our living room window. We just moved there about 5 months ago. And one of the biggest reasons why we moved there is because while going down Chandler and looking at the area, we saw that the Chabad was going up. They were building and everything was great. And then they stopped, and it was quite a disappointment because it was one of the big reasons why we moved there. So I encourage you to accept it. I think it'd be a great addition to the community. I know a little about real estate, and I know if you build it, I think the property values will go up, and it'll be a great addition. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. Good afternoon, ma'am.
My name is Shoshanna Reisenfeld. I live about a half a mile from Chabad, and I walk, or someone from Chabad comes and gets me from my home and walks me to and from shul. I don't know what I would do without them there. I've lived in the neighborhood for 32 years. I've gone to Chabad for almost 26 years. And it's open and welcoming. My kids have gone there. And it's the only kind of place that accepts everybody who wants to come. and we need a larger place because, and also when I bought my home 32 years ago, I paid a lot of extra money for it to live in an Orthodox community. And even in this downturn in the real estate market, my home has maintained its value because it's in an Orthodox community or in a community which is within walking distance of Orthodox synagogues. And we really need to have a larger facility.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Hi. Hi, my name is Lana Teller. I live about 10-minute walk from the shul, have been there for almost about 37 years. My children live about 7 doors from the shul. We are an integral part of the neighborhood. We are the neighborhood, just as much as everybody else who are opposing it. Having the number of parking spaces that were proposed that would be normally required would end up being empty 98% of the time, because most of the time we walk. Occasionally, we have an event. We can take care of that by the off-street parking at Valley College. It doesn't happen very often. That's basically what I want to say.
Thank you, ma'am. It seems like our last speaker on this.
Hello, hi. I'm Bonnie Myerson. I live at 5252 Agnes Avenue in Valley Village. That's a block east of Laurel Canyon, between Chandler and Magnolia. I have been in the neighborhood approximately 15 years. My children have grown up coming to Chabad and walking. They are now adults, and as you can see, I'm a mature woman, and I walk at least, it's 1.5 miles, I believe, one way, don't quote me on that, on Shabbos and on holidays. So there's no driving involved. I definitely support the expansion because there hasn't been sufficient room as we've all grown up with this shul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And I think this is the last speaker. All right.
Hi. My name is Philip Mintz. I live at 5434 Ethel Avenue. It's approximately 100 feet just north of Chandler on Ethel from the building. I have 8 kids, and it certainly makes for an easy walk. Not in the car, whether it's Saturday or any other holiday. We walk, whether it's to Chabad or any other synagogue in the area. So I support Chabad, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And thank you very much for your cooperation. We only went through half the stack, so that's pretty good. Now we'll go to the other side of the discussion. We have with us Rudy Nunez. Then we have Dee, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name, Dee Tunkavit. And then Scott Zubak. So come on up. If I called your name, please come and form a line behind the speakers. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The floor is yours.
My name is Rudy Nunez. I live at 13014 Chandler Boulevard. I have lived there for 37 years. I bought this home because I like the community. In this community, there are many Jewish people, and I like the way Jewish people live their lives. They keep their homes clean, they're law-abiding, they're good citizens. This is why I live here. So I've been listening to the people speaking here, and it seems to me that there might be a misconception that we are opposed to them building a temple, a place of worship. This is not the case at all. What I oppose is the size of the structure, and that's all. But I do welcome them to my neighborhood, and I know that my life will be better, my neighborhood will be better when this building gets built. What I object to is that they are not complying with the size that was approved. It is larger than it was supposed to be, and
thank you, sir.
All my objection.
Thank you very much. Next speaker. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dee. My family have been living on the corner of Chandler and Ethel, right across from Chabad for over 20 years. We have never had any problem with Chabad and have always been welcoming and open neighborhoods. However, This issue is something that we cannot overlook because of how unjustified and unlawful this construction project is. Chabad expansion will destroy our neighborhood and change it from a quiet R1 neighborhood to a commercial zone. We do not think that this project is appropriate for such a small and quiet neighborhood. I would like to also say one thing before read on my power thing. The attorney for Chabad said that this is obvious property which is right. And very tiny thing, I would invite all of you to visit the neighborhood and see how it feels.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Scott Zurback, Ronald Zeff, Andrew Sipes, and Jimmy Queston. I'd like to come on and form a line behind the speaker. Good afternoon.
My name is Scott Swyback. I live on Margate Street, about 500 feet from Chabad. I had this great speech all prepared for you, but I'm not going to use it. You know, we've heard a lot today about what they want, Chabad wants, and what Chabad needs. And we all agree that they need a better structure than they have. But I ask you, what about what the rest of the neighborhood wants and the rest of the neighborhood needs? Why is it that their rights trump our rights? This was a backroom deal concocted after they had exhausted all of their legal avenues. They went through council, they went through planning commission, were denied all the way, and yet Jack Weiss stood up in city council waiving a compromise, which was an entirely different building, which was passed. So I ask you, where is Jack Weiss? Is he here? Why isn't he supporting this project now? He was asked for a comment by the LA Times, and his repartee was no comment. Even he can't justify this project.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Okay, thank you. I'm Ron Ziff, Land Use Chair for the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. Neighborhood Council represents about 60,000 stakeholders. The Land Use Committee voted unanimously to reject the project because of its size and lack of parking. The board of the Neighborhood Council did the same. The project was never properly vetted through the zoning administrator, the current project. It violates numerous codes. The construction was done without entitlements or permits. And now the court's ordered you to correct the situation. You could find another maneuver like the 245 to force it on an unwilling community. We urge you to do something different. We urge you to act decisively to make the process impeccably honest. The city has laws and the city has a system. Send this back to the zoning administrator and let the system work.
Thank you, sir. After Jimmy Question, Dr. Bernard Silverman, Tess Jones, and Carolyn Uri. Good day, sir.
Jim, a question. You have my statement. There was also an error in that, but it's been corrected. You know, if this were a zone change, none of this would have happened. It would have been much, much smoother. We just have to get our zoning code up to what we want in this city, and then we don't get into all these embarrassing situations.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Andy Schaffman. I live at 13100 Margate Street. I can see Chabad present and past out of my living room window. I'm Jewish. I obviously have no problem with the synagogue or their worship. I obviously have a big problem with the fact that they obviously have outgrown the space that they were currently in, which is in an R1 neighborhood. The Orthodox synagogue down the street, Shart Tzedek, has at least, I believe, 100 parking spots, which they use. I have had people on Saturday drive on a regular basis and park in front of my home for years. I've lived there since 2002 and walk from in front of my home to Chabad. I've had them park up and down Ethel numerous times. There is not enough parking for the said building in this neighborhood. It will create numerous street parking all up and down, and I question what that would do to my home value.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Andrew Sipes. I live at 13018 Weddington Street. I'd like to just go on record as supporting the people who have spoken in opposition to the size of the Chabad building. Chabad is a wonderful organization. No one is looking for Chabad to leave the neighborhood. everyone recognizes that Chabad should have a new, larger building, just not this Taj Mahal that's being built, not one without adequate parking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Dr. Bernard Silverman. I'm an optometrist who's lived in the area since 1963. Chabad actually bought our fraternity house when after I was a student at UCLA, so I have close connections in that regard from early on. They did marvelous work in various parts of the community, but they can't do something like this to negate a lot of their marvelous, marvelous work. My wife and I have lived in the area. We brought up our kids there. We are affiliated Jews with the synagogue since 1968. We are Zionists and have been to Israel, including our kids and grandkids, at least 10 times. So we are not anti-Semites, as some have been depicting those who are against this. We are not unaffiliated Jews, and we certainly have no connection with Nazism, as somebody rumored us to be. The only part of Nazism is they killed my relatives. Mr. Resnick?
Thank you, sir.
This is not a highway. And if you think it's a highway, it's too dark,
Thank you,
too narrow
sir.
for the people to walk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi. It's impossible to do this in 1, 2, or 3 minutes. I do take issue with Mr. Resnick's representation of the MTA property, saying that they can use it for parking and outdoor activities. Really, they cannot. And on Sunday, they had a 4-hour party with loud music and bullhorns, and they're not allowed to be out there except on a few religious holidays a year. So that's one issue. We are not against Chabad getting a new building, a comfortable, modern synagogue. It's about the size, the massing, and the intensity of use. The rabbi says it's for 59 families. Mrs. Green said you can fit 200 people in a 1,400 square foot sanctuary assembly space. Variances are given to equalize, not justify something. The lot really limits what they can do, and I don't want to get into another topic because I don't have time.
If you have material you'd like to submit for the record, we can take that as well. If you have material for the record, we can take that as well. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Urie. I live at 13209 Margate Street in Sherman Oaks. I've lived in this area for 55 years now. I was 5 years old when my parents moved in, and I've seen our neighborhood grow and change. We've lived with the Chabad for 31 years with relatively few problems, but this is an invasion, not of the Chabad congregants or their beliefs. There is just too much about this building that is wrong. Wrong for the neighborhood and even wrong for the city, because it is setting an example that even more of these types of buildings can be constructed without following the law. The laws in place serve both the Chabad and the community, but there seem to be laws for special interests and laws for the rest of us. The City Council has to decide if they are going to uphold the laws that serve all of us or just those twisted faux laws that apply to Chabad. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
My name is Maria Chena Harrison, and I live at 13221 Chandler Boulevard, very short walk to Chabad. And I completely agree with my well-spoken neighbor. The community is very much in support of the religious happenings that happen at Chabad, but it is simply growing too large for the community itself. The building is just too big and does not follow the rules. So I concur with my lady here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And the last speaker will be the council representative for the area, Sean Bayless. Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Sean Bayless. I'm the Planning and Land Use Deputy for Council District 5.
You mind moving the microphone closer to you?
Sure.
Can hear you better.
Is that better?
Yes.
Excellent. Sean Bayless, the Planning and Land Use Deputy for Council District 5, the inheritor of the project we're talking about today. We've been involved with this project since we knew that we were taking over the district. We were not here during its initiation, during its zoning administrator hearing, or the subsequent council actions. However, we have reviewed those records. We've gone through them exhaustively. We've met with Planning Department, City Attorney's Office, all interested parties, both for and against. We completely agree with the court's decision that this is a fix. You have to create the revised findings for this project. So our office is in support of those revised findings that are before you today. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Councilman?
Yeah, so you're in support of the findings to connect the missing dots from where the court ordered us to do, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so as your office has reviewed the record, then you would, there's several appeals here. So your office would be in support of, to be correct, any modifications to any of the appeals?
Is our office suggesting any modifications to those appeals? We are not.
Okay.
We are not.
So in instance, you're looking at denying the appeal filed by Rabbi Aaron Abend and Mr. Runyon, or are you granting the appeal filed by Rabbi Aaron Abend? For the record, I want to make sure it's clear what direction you want to take this, given your review, given your analysis of the record.
Sure.
We have reviewed the findings ourselves, but as I stated in the past, I put a lot of weight on the opinion of the elected official of that district.
Of course.
And it's clear to me you've been working with both sides of the issue. So I want to be very clear the language that you would like expressed that determines your position.
Okay. Sure, I can do my best to give exact. I probably will not put it in a legal form. The city attorney's office here is here. Those aspects of the zoning administrator's previous decision, such as the height, the denial of the height, all of those remain. It would be the change of the synagogue area. That would be from the 2,000 and change square foot to the 3,000. And I don't think change is a technical term, by the way. The expansion of the synagogue, as it relates to as that finding then leans on the condition of the 200-person maximum occupancy. Additionally, I apologize. I go in order here. The alleviation of the requirement of a 40% of the total building square footage to be below grade.
Okay. Okay.
I apologize. So we've got the setbacks along Chandler, along Ethel, the expansion of the synagogue, the parking alleviation that's associated with that, and then the percentage of the square footage of the building that is below grade. Those are the four main areas that we're talking about.
Okay, so we can grant in part and deny in part?
Correct. The zoning administrator did deny the request for over and height, and let me see here. I'm trying to think of what else the zoning administrator originally denied. I think that is...
Let me phrase it this way to see if this will capture the position, and as you write the report comes to council, it'll be very specific as to the articulation of the detail.
Sure.
But we could grant in part, deny in part, the appeal filed by Rabbi Aaron Abend Shabbat of North Hollywood, Mr. Alvin Rahman and Jeff Gutman, from the determination of zoning administrator decision relative to the decision of the zoning administrator in connection with the construction of a new 3-story building in the R1-1 zone for use as a religious facility, a neighborhood synagogue with associated religious construction and community activities for property located at 13079 West Chandler Boulevard. With that statement, we could get the details of what sections you are agreeing with and disagreeing with, and it'll come to us before the council. Would that be accurate, Madam City Attorney?
Terry Coppin, the City Attorney's Office. Yes, but I wanted to just go over the language of the writ. There's
Yes.
been some discussion about what it says, and I want to make sure the committee understands what the court said.
Okay.
So in addition to setting aside the decision, which the council already did, the council, this committee is holding the hearing, can take any further action as necessary to make sure that its decision complies with the municipal code and the Topanga case, which is a case that talks about the findings, and the findings have to bridge the analytic gap between the raw evidence and the decision that's being made. The court said that that did not happen the first time. And then, to the extent the reconsideration involves a conditional use permit, which it does, it shall comply with Los Angeles Municipal Code Section 1224I, and to the extent it involves a variance, it shall comply with Los Angeles Municipal Code Section 1227K, but nothing in the writ controls or limits any discretion that's legally vested in the council. So there are provisions in both of those sections. 1224I is the conditional use permit provisions, which talk about the, if you're going to make a different determination than the zoning administrator made, you have to say how the zoning administrator erred. And you have to specifically say how the zoning administrator erred if you're going to make a different decision under the variance, which is 1227K. There is a provision under 1227K regarding new evidence if the council feels that new evidence has been presented. And I see that there was something submitted where Mr. Gantman, Tess Jones, and Mr. Raymond have submitted in writing what they perceived to be new evidence, and the zoning administrator can weigh in on whether that evidence was in front of her and part of the record or not. There are certain procedural hoops that have to be gone through if you're going to be considering new evidence, and that is, number one, it has to be put in writing. The writing has to state why that evidence could not have been presented before the zoning administrator. And the committee and council would have to make a finding that, in addition, that the evidence is of such a nature as might reasonably have led to a different decision by the zoning administrator or the area planning commission. And then at that point, it would get remanded back to the zoning administrator. So I do see there's some statements about that. I don't see an explanation necessarily as to why this couldn't have been presented before.
That's definitely an important topic to touch on. Our office doesn't feel that there has been any new evidence presented in this case. Every issue that we're discussing was discussed at the zoning administrator's hearing, is included in the staff report, was brought up during the hearing. The aspects of the case that we're talking about, the height, the setback, the portions below or above grade, all of the parking, all of those aspects were discussed at length, both in staff report and at the zoning administrator's hearing. So there's nothing new. We're talking about all the exact same aspects that have been
yes,
part of this
and
project.
I'm not saying that there is new evidence. I'm only saying that they presented it, so it's there. So I'm just raising it. And
okay, but for the sake of clarity, the evidence that was presented, whether it's new or not, I want to make sure for the record that you had a chance to review what was presented.
Yes, sir.
And you're saying yes?
Yes.
And given that...
Okay, well, so I think did you close the public hearing? I think you did.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So the zoning administrator can just weigh in on that issue.
Yes, please. Come on in.
For the record, Lourdes Green. I did not get the copy of the letter, but city attorney did show me a copy of the letter that was submitted to the council itemizing different discussions.
That's today?
Today, yes. I think it's dated actually today, so I did read it while I was in the back. And pretty much everything that I saw in there, and I can't remember every detail, but I think everything that I saw really had to do with the scope of the project. And so what I considered was a much larger project, and I think what this letter is alluding to is the fact that the project that resulted from City Council was a different project than what I had, but it is within the range of the scope. So there's nothing in there that would have convinced me to change any decision. I would have probably still proceeded with a smaller scope project.
So the observations of the letter submitted today are observations that fall within the envelope of space that you already analyzed.
Exactly. Some of the items, for example, had to do with, this is the different square footage. The council required a different basement capacity than what I did. But again, I would have had all that as long as the council did not consider something that was beyond the original scope, which I would have said then that is new evidence, but they stayed within and beyond it. So all of that really would have been theoretically in front of me.
I hear you. I understand clearly, and just for the record, it's very clear to me that what was submitted today did not offer any new information that would have been otherwise analyzed given the nature of the letter and its contents. Okay, Councilman Lorenzo, you have a question?
Yes, I think from the writ of mandate that was given to the city, it seems to me that the judge's concern was just that we didn't connect the dots in terms of what the findings were. And if it's the intent of the local council office to present some findings, that will do that, and after review of those, I would move that we deny the Gatman appeal, the Ramin appeal, and move forward with the Rabbi Aaron Abend appeal and approve that one and adopt the findings.
Councilman Terry Kaufman, the City Attorney's Office. The applicant also submitted some revised findings, and if the committee has looked at those findings and feel that those findings also accurately reflect the findings of the committee, they can be adopted as your findings as well.
Okay.
And the conditions.
Yep.
Yes, I believe we're comfortable with those findings as well.
Yes, those are the ones that the local council office has also thoroughly reviewed as well.
And then in addition, you have to make a finding on the mitigated negative declaration. So.
Okay. And that will be included in the action.
I can read that language into the record for you. On the mitigated negative declaration, if you're going forward with the project and if you agree with the statement, it would be to determine that the information contained in mitigated negative declaration, environmental case number 2007-1099-MND, has been reviewed and considered, and that the mitigated negative declaration adequately describes the potential impacts of the project, and that no additional evidence no additional environmental review is necessary under CEQA guidelines section 15162.
Okay. So that would cover all our bases in terms of folding in the findings, the language you just stated, with the action as suggested by Councilman Huizar.
Yes.
Okay. So that would be the action of this committee, and I believe this goes to council tomorrow. Okay. Okay. All right, folks, that concludes this item. Please, next item, Rebecca?
Public comment.
Anybody here for public comment? Saying none, this meeting is adjourned.